against an oaken table in his chambers with both hands. And only once the door is closed and silence has fallen does he look up and he says, "It seems that tonight's celebrations have taken a turn. I will confess, I did not expect him to accept. I made the decision that I did in the heat of the moment, but I want you all to know that I didn't lightly place your lives on the line, and nor was I rushing to face a veteran. From the Dance of Dragons, I hear, what do we know about this man?" And he just looks and he casts this question across the room to see who will answer.
They say he's not just a veteran of combat, but a fierce fighter, and perhaps even worse. Whispers of being a war criminal. I don't know of what acts particularly, but they don't sound good. He's a nasty man.
Wirrick just dwells on the information for a moment. "I did not issue this challenge out of arrogance for my own abilities, but rather from my faith in my brothers and comrades. I believe a battle between 7 of our best against 7 of his would prove to be the easier victory. We have stood together before, and we have become stronger because of it. But I would ask of you all, before I make this decision, for as Alfie has told me, that certain rules must be laid down, and I want to ensure that these are run by your council. So, your thoughts, brother?" And he looks to Willard, and he's been delaying looking at his brother, at least Willard anyway. He's been delaying looking at him because he knows that he has made a rash action, something that his brother wouldn't advise upon, and now he awaits the considered thoughts of his younger brother.
"I will not question you in this, my lord. If it is your will, it will be done. I'll do what I can, but I will observe our forebears' ways in mine own marriage."
You would allow it?
"I could not prevent it."
"But I can."
"Then it is your will."
Very well. To the instance of this proceedings, I would ask the opinion of you, Lawrence. You are one of my sworn swords, the best. How do you see this working to our advantage?
Ryder will be a capable fighter, and his men will be too. And they'll be practiced in war. We'll need to find a way to disrupt their usual patterns of attack if we are all going to fight, and if we want any chance of winning. If we fight them straightforward. It's not that I distrust any one person's skill, but we have not fought side by side in the ways that they have. We'll need a plan, and it'll have to be a good one. We'll need to determine too.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
No, you go. Carry on.
We'll need to determine too what sort of structure there'll even be to it. Is this to first blood, to yields, to death? Where are we fighting with what? These are all things that we'll need to decide.
Is this man someone who would die for his pride, I wonder?
He'd certainly kill you for yours if it's on the table.
Yes. Yes, I have no doubt. Alstan, you spoke with him? What did you make of him?
There was no fear in his conversation. He seems confident in his ability to take us. He's the reputation for the Battle of the Red Ice goes before him, and maybe he underestimates us, but who knows? He didn't seem unreasonable when I spoke to him, and he is a warrior. Maybe if we fight, maybe if we lose, but put up a good fight, he would spare our life, spare your life. I do not know.
If we can, we should set conditions until yield. That way, no one has to die.
I could go back to him. He made an approach. I could go back to him and see if these are your terms.
I have a few more that I would have to consider. And I would speak with him before this night is done. If he is a man who is reasonable, then perhaps we can come to some terms that will be of a benefit to both parties. I would speak with him.
Jeremy's hunkered in the corner with his hound, and kind of almost says to his hound, "He'll smell the fear."
Yeah, Wyrick would Wyrick hear that? Was that like a?
Yeah, he'd hear it. Sorry, my lord. I'm just thinking, if you take these terms to him, he's going to laugh, and you'll think you're afeard of him.
It's not fear to suggest that nobody should die from this. In fact, it's wisdom, I would say. If nobles die fighting at a wedding, it will not go well, even for the victors. The Starks will want to know why. They'll want to know whose blood was spilled and for what cause. And if no one's alive to answer, he'll just kind of like shake his head like it's bad news.
At the mention of that, Wyrick is going to look to the Maester and say, Maester, whatever conditions that we set, I would like them put down in ink and sent by Raven to the Lord of the North and to the Royal Court at King's Landing.
Yeah, he looks and nods, as you say, my lord.
I shall follow your counsel, Lawrence. You have stood by my side for a good many years now. I trust what you say. Cousin, Alston, go and speak with him. Arrange a apt meeting spot, and there we shall discuss what can be reasoned with.
Your mother bursts into the room, like flings the door open, and looks unhappy, although still not like freaking out in a very slatey way. And she like comes up to you, and then she slaps you in the face, Wyrick.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, "The slate has been cracked. Such an outpouring of emotion. You have shown weakness here. You won't bend, and so you'll break. For this girl, she's
For
a nice
our
girl,
name.
but that she should be the ruin of our house. It's not right."
The decision is mine. As lord of this house, Mother, you will remember that.
She looks at you, and then at Willard, and then at Darren. She sort of shakes her head slowly. If you want to ruin the house, this is madness. And then she'll go.
Warwick is clearly affected by this. And he looks around and he says, any more truths to be honed to this room before I leave? And he looks around.
Cousin, I think that if you expect Darren and Willard to fight in the same fight, it could finish the whole House of Slate. Bit of bad luck and the whole House of Slate falls. It doesn't need to be. You shouldn't have everybody in the fight.
He sort of holds your gaze for a while. And then he looks down. And he says, send word I will speak to him, cousin. Arrange where and when.
He nods and turns and leaves quickly to arrange a meeting.
Yeah, as you come back downstairs, so you go.
With your leave, my lord, I would go to my lady wife and finish my nuptials, if you've no need of further counsel.
You see a look of guilt sort of fall across Warwick's face that this decision he has made has interrupted something sacred for his brother, something meaningful. And he goes to say anything, but nothing can. He can't muster anything.
Might I take Jeremy with me, my lord, to duty?
Of course.
He'll nod to Jeremy in turn and leave the council.
Yeah, Jeremy will go to follow, but pause before he leaves Warwick and say, there's wisdom, of course, from mothers, I know, but all battle's a form of madness, my lord. Some things mothers don't understand.
And some things they do better than anyone. Thank you, Jeremy.
And he'll nod his head and follow.
Yeah, Willard will wait for Jeremy to fall in with him and go to where Beric is dressed, probably looking a bit queer compared to normal in his courtier's clothing. And with other Slate men, he'll give them a nod to fall in around and enact Alston's plan from earlier about his own wife, and proclaim that in poor taste, I guess, really, and in mock irony, but he has to say the right words, that every wedding requires a bedding, and that he would now be married to his wife and have what lords would still be left to observe that, to be noble witnesses, to make sure the ritual's complete, at least sealing his part of the Vollen annexation.
And a lot happens all at once. You can see that Lord Vollen and his wife are both relieved. You can see Lord Holt is gripping his cup with white knuckles, at no appearance of Warwick to do the same. And yeah, there are still plenty of lords here, and the betting can go as it always does. Maybe less enthusiastic or less cheerful or less rowdy than usual, with like a pall of like grim realization dawning on many of the guests here.
Yeah, probably sobered or winded a little.
Yeah, because usually it's like the climax of a wedding and everyone's like really excited, but it's been this sort of like quiet conversation for a while, and so it's very much ritualistic as opposed to sort of wild and raucous the way that it usually would be. But yeah, the Holts and your mother will go and follow, and like Riswell and all the others who are here. We'll see it through.
Yeah, Willard will let himself be carried up by the tide of drunken ladies, like water's taking him away from this place, and that's what he'll do.
If you're looking for Ryder, Alfie, you can find him. He's still sitting in the same spot. Understandably, didn't get involved in the betting of Willard and Tyra. He and his men are like a dour, serious lot now, and you'll see that like all of their cups have been like pushed to the side. They're no longer like in merriment. They're sitting in like quiet consultation. And he like looks up as you approach. Alfie?
Lord Ryder, Lord Warwick would like to speak to you one-to-one.
I see. Where? Now?
We will meet you on the east tower, on the roof of the east tower in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Bring one of your men. I will go up and our two men will wait together just out of range of the two lords' hearing.
Very good. I'll be there.
I nod again and return to Warwick to announce.
Okay, do you want to go straight there, Warwick, when you've been told?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay. So then it's miserably cold. There's like a light snow falling. It's the middle of the night, and it's coming into winter, and so it's very cold. And Ryder stands at the tower. You'll walk past one of his men. You probably don't know him, I wouldn't think, but yeah, he very much looks sort of like a Lawrence figure, like big, broad, muscled, obviously like a retainer or a warrior of Ryder's.
Yeah, as he walks along the battlements to meet the adjoining tower, he'll put his cloak on. It sort of snaps in the wind. And sorry, did you say that along with the retainer, Ryder is there?
Yes, yeah, he's at the tower waiting.
I know I didn't say. Sorry, would I have brought someone with me? Like who was left?
I would
in
have
the room?
accompanied you.
Yep.
Alfie's with me, isn't he? Of course.
Yeah,
of course
he did the discussion.
That's right. Okay.
So Alfie introduces himself to the retainer, and then sort of with his expecting to hear his name back.
Randar of Whitehall, he says.
Randar Whitehall, and then with his hand just indicates to come and leave the two lords and join him on the stairs. He'll just go a distance away so they can speak in. There's a bit of, I'm imagining sort of there's a little bit of a wind, so once we get to a space where they can speak quietly and hear each other, but we can't hear.
Yep. Yeah, he'll go with you. No problem there.
So once that's happened, then there's I imagine, a long pause as where it gets the measure of Lord Ryder standing in front of him. Does he look angry? Does he look, what sort of state of mind does he look like he's in?
No, he doesn't look angry. He looks like he's thinking, strategizing, like he's looking out over the castle grounds. He doesn't look particularly like worried or stressed. Just looks like he's thinking. He's got like a frown on his face, but it doesn't look like he's furious.
It's quite an escalation that we've witnessed this evening, Lord Ryder.
On your part, Lord Slate.
Everything you can see from this tower is under my name as Lord of Blackmere here. And I'm sure, as a man of honor and a man of respect, you can respect the fact that what I say goes under my roof. I made an attempt to be reasonable, and I was defied under my own roof.
That is a way to put it. I don't agree. There are rules under your roof, and there are rules for every roof in all of Westeros. It's an ancient tradition, and you're pissing on it, and I won't have it. It's not a wedding unless there's a bedding. Everyone knows that. Children know that.
Then it is a matter for children, Lord Ryder, for you and I both know that you don't give a dawn's hot shit about tradition. You're a man of war, aren't you?
I am a man of many things, but yes. I've been to war more than once.
And I want you to know that you have my utmost respect for that. There are many that speak your name.
And what I really couldn't give a shit for, Lord Slate, is your respect after the way that you just spoke to me. You seem a petulant man.
Maybe.
I don't go to war and kill enemies so that southern lordlings will be impressed. I do it because it's my duty.
I'm not southern, Lord Ryder. Though it is not the first time that I've been called that.
You act southern.
I understand. I understand that there are these rituals and there are these traditions that must be upheld. And it's something that I've admittedly found challenging to adapt to on my return here. But I learned many things when I was in the South. I learned that much can be gained with reason and with conversation. You are right, I spoke brashly. But I did so because I have endured this little tradition of yours once before. It's something that's haunted me all my life. And it's not something that I would want to inflict upon my new wife on this auspicious day.
It's not my tradition, it's our tradition, it's everyone's tradition. And beyond being a tradition, it's important so that you know a marriage is a marriage, as opposed to just words. Words are wind.
Well, if words are like the wind, then let me amend mine. In the hall, I was stating that I would have my best face yours at the command of you and I. And we would clash, and many would fall, and many would be injured. I do understand that my actions are controversial, unorthodox, perhaps. But they are mine, and for that I will act on them alone. If you would accept, Lord Ryder, I would face you in single combat in the morning. You may choose your weapons, and I shall choose mine, and we shall fight.
Interesting. It's all the same to me, Lord Slate. I'm standing up for what I believe in. You gave a public challenge, and I accepted. Whether it's 7 of mine, 100 of mine, or just me. I've accepted, and I won't go back on it.
And so it shall be then.
And what are the terms? If you win, are we fighting to the death?
Well, Lord Ryder, I don't particularly want to die on my wedding day. And while I respect that you uphold these traditions, I wonder, would you die for them?
His face
After
is
all.
impassive. He doesn't seem to react at all.
After all, this was to be a day of union, and it's not something that I want to just cast aside. You are experienced in war. I'm sure you're experienced in counseling and the governance of your lands. You understand that there is more at stake than just your pride and mine.
If we fight, I'll kill you. I don't want to kill a man on his wedding day. And you're right, there's more to this than a simple blood sport, and so why don't we figure something out? You've challenged me publicly, so you'll have to apologize. But I suppose I could let it slide. We could make some sort of a deal.
A deal?
Well, it all rests upon you publicly apologizing to me. Is that something you can do? Can you swallow your pride enough?
I could say anything. But it won't change the fact that no bedding shall occur.
Then we'll fight.
So we return to my initial question, Lord Ryder. Are you willing to die for such a tradition?
Yes. If I'm not willing, then what's the point in any of it? It all falls apart.
If that is truly what you wish, Lord Ryder.
If you want to fight until we yield, then you can simply ask. But I'm not afraid to die. Though it seems you might be.
I understand that if I die, everything falls into chaos too. Like I said, I'm not just speaking for myself.
There's more slates.
That's true. I'll see you in the morning, Lord Ryder.
No yield then?
Never.
He nods.
And he turns and he walks.
Yeah, Alfie, I think you probably hear the footsteps of an approaching lord behind you. I imagine Wyrick maybe doesn't stop and politely say anything, just sweeps past.
No, and Alfie doesn't expect it, so he just falls in behind and will go in silence down the stairs.
I think they probably would have been taken off him for the wedding, like with the rest of his men. Like no one's walking around except for like the actual lords, like you actual lords in the hall with weapons. I don't think.
Could we do maybe like a check? Like, have we heard of one of these stories where it was like, oh, and then he swung his?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
You know what I mean?
Yep. You can do a history check.
Okay.
Or can I have a memory check for what he arrived with?
Sure. Yep.
I don't know how to do that.
Just
Intelligence.
Yeah.
I'll do history then.
I did well. 21.
Okay, yeah. So he arrived like a shield on the side of his horse. He wasn't carrying it, and a hammer, and also like a long spear over his shoulder. But you think the spear is just because he was riding?
Yeah. I think his normal weapon is the spear. Is the hammer for.
You can find them, I guess, depending on where they've gone. Willard's in the middle of something. I don't know, like if your intent, Nico, is to like get back up and rejoin like whatever madness is happening tonight.
No, to like separate as much as I can from it.
Okay. Yeah, so I think it'd be tricky then to get to Willard, but the rest I'm sure you can find wandering about the castle or with their hands in their heads or whatever it might be. If any of you want to do anything during the night before the fight tomorrow, now is the only time that you get to do that, because it will be morning pretty soon.
and like that'll be playing on his face that like he wants to find something to say but can't, and eventually he'll just kind of sigh. If your honor compels you to stand for this, then it is a noble goal, one with dire consequences, but the end, if you succeed, will be good. I've seen you fight. I know that you know how to swing a sword. And Ryder does too. If you are certain that what you're doing is right, then I will stand and watch whatever falls. Best of luck, my lord, and best of skill.
I think at that point, Wyrick would just put a hand on your shoulder and then turn as you leave.
Jeremy.
What?
Oh, sorry. Jeremy would be in the hall practicing some therapeutic boiling by the fire. The limb dropped from the weirwood tree is taking shape now. And though his hand is still, his stomach is alive with uncertainty. And as he takes one paper thin line from tip to tip of the back of the bow, following the grain from one end to the other, and then casting it into the fire, watching it dance briefly before it turns into ash. His eyes will slide up and look over to Ryder and his men for as long as they remain in the hall. And with his keen senses, he'll be taking measure of their mood and their conversation.
Yeah, they you'll see the two of them don't speak, have never spoken the whole night. They'll occasionally like nod or like bang the table, but they don't speak. The others like are clearly friends of Ryder's, as well as like his servants. You think like landed knights, basically. Like they have their like they watch over some of the villages in Ryder's domain. And overall, like the talking is like just talking about what they know about this house and about Wyrick and how he fights, and that kind of thing. There's like some talk about that he might cheat. This is like a concern he's been known to, apparently. Ryder does not seem concerned. Like he doesn't seem like arrogant, but he doesn't seem fearful. Just resigned that he's going to fight like a capable person tomorrow, though he doesn't like show any sort of fear of death on his face.
So it's all talk about the battle tomorrow. There's no talk about what might be the repercussions or anything like that.
So for now, it just seems to be mostly they're talking about Wyrick and how best to defeat him.
Okay.
But not about repercussions or like what would happen afterwards. Like Ryder wants the betting to happen. That's like the condition, I guess, of his victory. Is that, well, if he wins now, there won't be a wedding at all. But that was like his initial want. So yeah.
Well, it seems pretty honest and straightforward in a savage and brutal way. Yeah, so that's all he would do, and then he would obviously try and get some sleep before the morning, if it's at all possible.
When Alston reported to Jeremy, he will have suggested going up to the combat site and make sure everything is clear, and he'll go out with him in the morning and before the fight to make sure there's nothing sort of there are no ruts in the ground or anything like that, just to sort of make sure it's a sort of fairly even ground. Or, well, we can discuss any tactics when we get there if there are any.
Is there anything else anyone wants to do before morning?
I think Wyrick would actually try and find Arya.
Yeah, I guess she would be like in her chambers upstairs, likely with her parents. Sitting quietly, and as you like find them, you'll see that like Lord Holt is like looking out the window, and he's like standing with his hands behind his back, and there's a pretty dour mood in here.
Please forgive me. I would speak with my lady alone.
Yeah, he turns, and sort of looks at you for a second. What is it that you think you're doing? I understand that perhaps you think that you are protecting my daughter, and maybe that's admirable. The betting exists for reasons that are much separate to that. It's the final signature upon the contract. What are you doing here, Lord Slate? What is the point in this madness?
I've endured the tradition once. It is not something that I would have repeated here. You ask what I'm doing, Lord Holt. I'm setting an example.
And so for your feelings and your pride now, my daughter may be unmarried after all this. You could die. You likely will die.
I actually wish to speak to my lady upon this matter.
He like goes to say something, and his wife like grips his arm. All right. And he leaves. They leave.
I wanted to apologize, first of all. I thought what I was doing was,
Noble.
something like that.
Yeah. Something like that.
As I said to your father, I wanted to set an example. That if I were to say that no one was to touch you, no one would touch you.
Right.
Are you wounded by this?
She like pinches the bridge of her nose. There's always a betting. Wyrick, there's always a betting in every wedding. I was resigned to it. Everyone is. Now there'll be no wedding. And you could die.
I could. I might.
There's a strange contradiction in what you've done.
And what's that?
In saying that, trying to protect me from these people, saying that no one can touch me, and because you say that, it must be true. There's something there. Can you see that?
So by doing this, you're saying I have damaged your future because I may likely die. Is that it?
What I'm saying is that this comes from a strange place. Trying to protect me, but only so... She sort of shakes her head. I don't think it matters so much now.
Perhaps I have jeopardized everything. But I wasn't going to endure it again.
Well, I hope you win.
I thank you for showing me that it was within me to not be afraid. And strangely, despite all of this, I'm not.
Well, maybe something good has come of it after all. I'm glad that you feel well.
I think it is best that I shall prepare. But I won't say goodbye, Arya. Not now.
Good night then.
Turns and he leaves.
Okay, so before morning comes, we'll take a quick smoko bio break, I think, and exhale for the first time in many hours.
Yes.
Okay, we'll be back in like 5, thereabouts.
Yeah, sounds good.
So, Willard, you've woken up well before dawn in the hopes that you can find your brother to speak with him before what is about to happen.
Yeah, he'll dress in appropriate attire and leave Tyra sleeping and adopt like the wolf fur cloak blazoned with the shadow cat and take ways known by the Slates down to the mere inside of the mournful Westerly in like the gloom. And yeah, he thinks he knows that Wyrick will be there.
And I think he absolutely will be. He'll be lost in his own thoughts, but will turn as the sound of your footsteps reaches his ears.
Do you remember all those years ago when I fell from that bank? He'll point through the sleet across the ink waters into the waters, drowning. You ran to grab Beric, and Whistler came and saved me.
Yes, yes, I do remember.
You and Arya and the Whistler and everyone else looking around me when I awoke from the black. It's my last memory of this place before I went to the Starks.
I missed you, brother. Didn't think I'd ever see you return from Winterfell. I thought that was you, for good. What have I done, brother?
What you thought was right, which is your right as Lord, and like us all, you'll be judged by the old gods and your new.
Oh, gods. New gods. These rites, these traditions. Makes me sick. I mean, if you're doing one thing, you're contradicting the other. You're appeasing one side, you're neglecting the other. Where does it end?
It doesn't, Willard nods to your truth. In the end, you only have a choice.
And it seems my choice has doomed the woman I was trying to protect from an ordeal to a future of uncertainty. All the work that we have done, you have done, is now at risk. And so that makes one thing very clear to me, brother. I have to win.
He nods.
As I'm sure you've heard by now, I elected to fight him on my own.
He'll smell the dawn approaching and look away and nod again before turning his gaze back to his brother.
If I do, if I lose, if I die, you will be what keeps this house in a position where it can survive. The line will fall to Darren. And you can see he looks a little uncertain, like he hadn't even thought of that. If he dies, Darren's going to become the Lord.
All will be taken care of, and Arya and your households. Banish thoughts of them for now and think on the task at hand.
Do you know anything of this man? Anything that I can use to my advantage?
He'll know that he's better than you. And as it's a public spectacle, he might want to toy with you at first in front of people. Use that underestimation to your advantage to learn of his step and his stance. Keep your back to the east and strike at his legs if you can. He's a cavalryman, so most of all his footwork may be his weakness. His hammer will be heavy, and even though he's well used to it, he'll need to tense before attacking, so strike in that moment. Remember the roots where the heart tree grow under the snow. Let him force you there if you can. If he trips, finish him swiftly. For even from the ground, he'll be a dangerous foe. If you can force him to yield, spare him before all.
It's the best piece of advice I've had all night.
Then take it and think of nothing else.
He smiles and he looks out into the to the water. I remember you splashing around like a frightened lamb, soaked from head to toe. Now look at you. That slate expression. It's something you mastered long before me. You wear it well, brother, and you wear it best. I love you and thank you for your words. I must prepare and, as you say, put my mind to the task.
Take this too, and he'll unbuckle his sword belt and reveal from the cloak a fine, long estoc of Volentine origin. I had it reforged and intended to make a gift of it to you at the bedding, but take it now for this work. It's lighter and longer than your own, and if you can find a part in his armor, drive it in and wedge him from there, and give him some of me. And he'll hand the blade in the sleet with mailed gloves.
I'll do it gladly, brother. And he looks at this shining new blade with awe, and with it comes a shard of confidence, like the light flickering upon its polished blade. I'll wear it with pride.
I think Willard take a look as that first arrow streak of dawn slices through the mirror, and then he'll turn to leave his brother to his preparations, meditations, or ruminations.
Yeah, as the sun starts to rise, there's the crunching of footsteps in the snow, people arriving from inside the castle they've walked across from the Tor now towards the grove itself. And the lords Riswell, Holt, Vollen, Lady Whitehill, will all arrive with their people in tow. And eventually, so does Lord Ryder with his men behind him. He arrives and looks to the tree for a moment, and then will step to a point where he thinks the fight will happen. He's like looking at the ground, at the area, trying to get an understanding of it and like what is where and what the distances are and things like that. You can see he's focusing pretty hard on that at the moment. And Lord Riswell will sort of walk to you, Willard. What is to be the setup here? Is it to the death?
Oh yeah, okay. So, where it says the conditions are these. Lord Ryder has made his position quite clear. While I did not wish it, it seems the death will be the only outcome for either Lord Ryder or myself. And so, that is how it shall be. I will also stipulate that this is where the matter ends. If Lord Ryder wins, well, there will be no wedding. But if I win, this is where the matter ends. We will be considered, myself and my lady, man and wife, and none shall challenge again afterwards. This ends here and now.
Ryder sort of like looks around at the people and then towards you and shrugs his shoulders. He looks over his shoulder at his men and they all nod in agreement to the conditions.
So Lloyd, if you wouldn't mind, just describe to me the setup. So we're before the tree. Are we sort of... We're just in front of the tree, right?
That the people
right
have
here.
like arrayed in a circle, I guess of like 30 feet maybe, around, and the two of you will fight in that circle. I think like because it's not any sort of like religious ceremony or anything like that. There's no specific like rules as such. I think as like the most powerful lord here, Riswell will like start the fight. He'll like say something to begin it, but I think beyond that, like that's probably it.
Very well. Well, Warwick would have already have donned his armor. And in his hand, or rather resting in his grasp, is the hilt of the Volantine blade. It's still in its sheath at the moment. He straps his iron rimmed shield tightly to his left arm, and as he's doing so, he throws a glance over at his opponent.
Yeah, Ryder is in heavy armor, and he sort of like looks in your direction. He walks across the gap and like extends his hand. Good luck.
Weir takes a step forward, and he takes his hand and gives him an expression that is in his blood, though sometimes he finds it a little unwieldy, more unwieldy than his brother at least. He gives him a slate expression where he can read nothing.
Alfie looks over at Darren to see what his emotions seem to be, or what he seems to be feeling, if he's betraying any feeling at this coming fight.
You think that if it wasn't so cold, he'd be sweating trying to keep the slate from cracking. Like he's trying his best to maintain a normal, serious expression, but you think that he's like very worried about this situation. Like he doesn't want his brother to die. He thinks this is bad all around, you think.
He's satisfied with that, and he keeps his own slatey expression.
Ryder will nod at you, Wirrick, and then we'll like walk back to the opposite side and like don his helmet and strap it closed, strap his shield tight to his arm, and pull the hammer from the sling at his waist. And he'll start rolling his shoulder a little bit here and there, and like warming up a little bit. He'll like jump up and down a few times, and Riswell will walk forwards. And he'll say, "Here in sight of the old gods and of the new, these two men will fight to the death. No quarter shall be given. The penalty for any interference is death. Lord Wirrick Slate, are you prepared?
I am.
Lord Carrick Ryder, are you prepared?" And he grunts a yes. And then Riswell sort of steps back into the crowd and claps, and we roll initiative.
Valentine blade sings as it is drawn. Let's fucking do this. I don't know if I actually have an initiative bonus, sorry. I do. That's a 19 in total.
Okay. Okay, so I think you probably started about 15 feet apart. No, probably like closer to 10 feet apart. Yeah, and you are first to act.
Yeah, without wasting any time, he is going to immediately rush Ryder, and he's going to immediately try and lock into him. Not attacking him with the blade, rather trying to knock the veteran from his feet with an athletics opposed.
He's an 18 on the die, so it's like a 25.
Yeah, it's beating me anyway. I got let's see, that would have been a 20. That would have been a 21, but not enough.
So I think you like that would have like knocked most people over, but it seems like Ryder is much heavier than he looks, and there's like a boom, and you like connect his like feet scramble backwards, but he eventually like into the dirt or into the snow, buries his feet and manages to stay standing. Is that it for you?
That is it for me. I only get one attack action, so that's it.
Okay. He'll respond by swinging his shield sort of sideways towards your face. Getting a 14.
In total?
Yeah.
No, able to block that easily.
Yeah, so you duck under that, and then the axe follows, or the hammer follows.
Oh, shit.
That's a 21.
Yep, that's going to hit.
Okay. Oh boy. It's 14 damage.
Ouch.
The hammer, like, as you duck, like, comes up underneath and catches you in the shoulder. And then it's your turn.
Okay, apologies. What I'm doing very quickly, I'm just bringing up my thing there, so I can total that. And that was 14, was it?
That was 14, yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, the impact is enough to send Wirrick reeling back. The dew on the morning ground makes the surface of it slick, but he slides to a halt and rolling his shield arm and whirling the Valentine blade. He goes to strike out with just a sweeping diagonal uppercut upwards across him. Let's see how we do. There's an 18 on the die again, plus 8 with a long sword, so
26.
That's the one.
That will hit.
So that is 13 points of slashing as the sword. Oh, sorry. Does it get extra because it's a Valentine sword, or is it just?
It's +1 to hit and damage.
Yeah.
So that will be 14 points then.
Very good. Okay. He will try the same again. So as you like slash, he's gonna basically punch forward with the rim of his shield, try and catch you in the sternum with it. That is a critical hit, my friend. You can absorb it, but it'll hit.
I will choose to absorb.
Okay, so the shield like catches you full force in one of the softer parts of the armor, like right under your sternum, and there's like a of breath. You are knocked prone. That's what the shield bash does, and you will take. I didn't have a D4 ready. It's always the dice you think you won't need. Wow, minimal damage, so 6 damage from that. And you're not prone, and then the axe is going to come overhead. Or the I keep saying the axe. The hammer comes overhead down towards you as you hit the ground with advantage. Okay, it's at 18 on the die, which...
yeah, well, that hit last time, so it's going to hit me again.
That's going to be 8.
Ouch. Yeah, so Wyrick hits the ground hard, and then this rain of hammer strikes comes piling down on top of him. The sheer racket of steel upon steel is all that he can really hear. He's gonna do his best to roll to his feet. I can just do that as my movement, can I, Lloyd?
Yep, heavy movement to stand.
Yep, and as he does so, he's going to make just another strike. Hopefully he can survive one more of those. That is a 19 on the die, which as a champion means that's a critical hit.
Excellent. Okay, he will absorb it with his shield.
Yep.
You'll do the double damage. Or the... You still get to roll both dice.
Yeah, so that's 8 on the first one. It's a 1. I get to reroll ones.
Yep.
That's 4. That's 14 points of damage. It wasn't very good.
Okay. So you strike out with the sword, and he manages to block the worst of it with the shield. And so instead of hitting him directly in the shoulder joint of the armor, it's like it scrapes across and connects, but doesn't pierce all the way through. Even so. Telling strike. Okay, he is going to move back away a little bit, and then he's going to swing again with the shield. But he misses, and then the hammer follows, which he might miss again. 18.
That does miss. That does miss.
Yep. So clearly, the hit has jarred him in some sort of way. He stumbles back a little bit, and now swings a little bit more clumsily. It's your turn.
So Wyrick sees that he's got him staggered, and the words of his brother sings or sort of echoes in his mind, get him off his feet as a cavalryman, like he needs to, his strength is at the top. So he's gonna just strike out with... do I try and knock him over again? I'm going to say... No, I'm just going to do a straight attack. Apologies. Sorry, my brain is just running through the different things that I can try and do. So sorry, I'm just doing my best.
Oh, good. It's a tense situation.
It is, yeah. That's a 20. Not a natural, sorry. Just that's
I'll say strike him now! And add 7 to that.
Oh, nice.
Oh. Yeah, that echoing of the advice is actually backed up by his brother calling from the stands or whatever, or the circle.
Yeah, 27 so definitely hits.
Then that does hit. Excellent. A 1 again, so do I get to re-roll it all the time, or is it just once? Okay. 14 again. 14 points of damage.
Very nice. That is... Okay, yeah. So the strike, he's knocked back, and then he is going to duck down and try and swing upwards with the shield to knock you to the ground. It's a 19 on the die. So
I'm going to elect to use my reaction to parry that.
Okay, it's sitting at a 26.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant the total was 19.
No, 19 on the die, sorry.
Oh, well, my apologies. Then, yeah, that's going to hit. Yeah,
okay.
Don't worry.
Yep, so then you are knocked prone and you take...
Oh, God.
4 damage.
Yep.
Yeah, so maybe like the sort of surge of confidence from the strike made you just for a second a little bit complacent, and then the shield comes boom and smashes you and knocks you into the dirt in the second after the hammer comes overhead down towards you with advantage, and that's a crit.
I absorb it.
Have you got? Oh, you have a shield. Yeah, you have the good shield.
I've used one absorb. I've got another one left, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, so it's gonna be 10 damage.
That's okay.
Really not great.
No.
Okay, that's it. Yeah,
right.
Sorry, that will break the shield though, because the second absorb.
Of course, yeah.
So I guess the hammer comes down and like cracks through, and like you're holding onto like some splinters and you can shake those away.
Yeah, just this raining hammer again and again smashing down on Warwick as once again he is knocked back onto the ground. The shield splinters off his arm and he actually rolls whilst there's another thudding strike that just lands heavily in the dirt next to him. He is going to basically rear up. And
Recap the bear fucker.
yeah, he's gonna first of all I'm gonna use my bonus action to second wind, which I will roll now, which means I roll a d10 plus my fighter level. Oh, fucking gods, yes. Okay, so back to that again. So that's bonus action. He's now going to use his. I can make an attack as well, can't I? If that was a bonus.
Was your bonus, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he's going to take a swinging strike. 24.
He will lift his shield and parry that.
Oh,
okay.
I will add a dice and say, now while his belly's exposed. and add
he
6 to that.
Okay, nice.
He whirls and is able to then duck beneath the shield in a feinting reaction to try and deliver the strike, which he's going to use versatile now that...
No, so it's not a longsword, it's a rapier.
Oh, so I can't.
Yeah, you can't two-hand it. It has to be versatile to do the two-handy.
No problem.
Do you have a dagger or a dirk you could use for your bonus?
I do.
Yeah, you would. Although you second win it this round, right? So you can't this round, but in future rounds.
Yes. Yeah, of course. In that case, I'll... Oh, sorry, I still got to do the damage of that one. So that is just a d8. Sorry, my apologies.
All good?
12 points of damage.
12, okay. Okay. He is going to use his tried and true method.
Yep.
Swing the shield for your head with a 16 on the die for a total of 23.
Yep.
So you are knocked prone and you take 5 damage.
I don't get to say. Do I not get to save at that at all? It's literally if that hits me, it knocks me over.
Yep, you take X bludgeoning damage and the target is knocked prone.
Okay. Sorry, it was 5 damage, was it?
5, yep.
Okay.
So he knocks you into the dirt again. He even like turns for a second and like, wah! And then is going to bring the hammer down. It's an 18 on the die, my lord.
Yeah, that's going to hit.
I think I could just roll the dice on the table instead of onto the ground, but that's going to be 13 damage.
I am on 1 HP.
Wow. Yep. So the hammer comes down, boom, probably into the jaw or something, and there's like a crunch, and he like lifts it back up, and it's your turn.
Yeah, just again another raining strike down again and again and again, and it's clear to all that Warwick is obviously being drained from just having to get back up again and again, taking strike after strike after strike. Not pleasant to watch at all.
No, like your mother is just like screaming with like her hands on her face, as are like many of the other people in like who are your family members, just like trying to keep it together but struggling.
Yeah, so he is going to make one last defiant attempt to attack. And in doing so, he's going to action surge. So I'm going to attack twice.
Okay.
And this time, can I use a dirk, or will that? I can.
Yep. So you can go sword, dagger. I think.
Sword, dagger. Okay. So the first one is a natural 20.
Very nice. Okay, he'll absorb it with his shield. He'll absorb it with his helmet, I guess. Yeah, with his helmet.
Shit, I forgot about that. Well, I still get the double damage though, right?
Yes.
Okay. $18 points of slashing damage. So that's just with the sword.
Okay.
I'm now going to make the attacks, or rather, what the single attack with the dagger. That is a 21.
Okay, he'll parry that.
I will add 2 and say, now at his knees.
So that'll put it 23.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's still he parries with 24. So his AC is 24 for the turn now.
Okay.
So you still have one sword attack, I think, right? Because you get.
Mm.
Oh, so yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck's sake. Sorry.
All good.
That's a 25.
Okay, that'll hit.
Fucking hell. Please. It's 14 points of damage.
Okay. He swings. With the shield, but he misses, and the hammer that follows. But that will definitely hit. It's a 18 plus 7.
Well, that's it.
So you dodge the shield, probably exhausted, as is he. And then like a sort of clumsy movement and a strike connects overhead and into your jaw, probably, like sending you sprawling into the dirt. And Ryder like stands and like is wondering if you're getting back up, because this has happened before. And he waits. You don't seem to be getting back up.
Yeah. Well, do I have any awareness at all to sort of,
I think you're unconscious now, right? If you've taken the damage, like you could probably say something or groan something, but otherwise no.
I think the last thought that would have run through his mind is simply that as he sort of falls, like as he's hit, he sort of arcs backwards, and his field of vision takes in the tree. But where this tree gleams with its white bark and its eyes run red with blood. His own eyes run red with blood from the continual strikes from Ryder. And he can't see colour anymore. He can just see it as this dark shape. And it looks like it's withering. Like the black tree he was wed before. With his lost love. And he thinks he sees her face. And that's all that can really pass through his mind, I guess.
Yeah. Ryder won't spare you. You agreed to the death, and he would expect you to kill him. So mechanically we can do death saves and stuff, but really with no interference. I don't think there's a way that
No.
Can I call out to Ryder from the crowd?
Yeah.
Lord Ryder, I implore you. You have won, the victor for all to see. The matter is settled, and your terms will be conducted. Spare my lord and make a friend of him. I beseech you by the old gods who watch us.
Would I have been spared?
I would have implored my lord and counselled him to it. I confess before all here that this morning that I gave him those very words. And he says it with as much conviction as he can muster, trying to ignore in his periphery the blood widening about his sleeted brother.
Tricky, because I think, like, to Ryder, that was like an oath, you know?
Yeah, fair game, but I would be compelled to speak.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, like... No. He'll shake his head. And he'll put a foot on Warwick's chest and then bring the hammer down onto his head. And then he'll step away and look to Riswell, who like gives a nod of like it's done, and he'll walk back to his men, who will like put their shoulders under his and bring him to sit.
Willard will go to Nora and Weiler and have them.
Yeah, Darren is looking in horror. He's trying to keep the slate from cracking, but I think it's like impossible. He's like trying not to rush over there, you think, and finish Ryder and like start some sort of terrible brawl. And you can see like his fists are clenched tightly in the heavy gloves that he wears.
Jeremy would be seeing to Wirrick's body as well, and if anyone would let him, he would pull it at least in temporarily to nestle amongst the roots of the weirwood tree. His back against that same trunk in which his tooth resides.
Lawrence is like shell shocked at this stage. Like somewhere in his heart, he knew that this was like a possibility. But like given everything that they had gone through, like to actually see it end this way, like, it seemed like it was destiny that this would be the heroic moment. That his lord would come victorious, and that he would be there to congratulate him. And then like seeing that all unravel, like the grief of like Martin's death, and now, at least apparently to him, Wirrick's is just like numb. He doesn't like know what to do or how to respond, and the only person he would normally lean on for commands or direction is now unable to do so. And he'll just like stand there blankly, just like staring at the pooling blood, and like not know what to do at all.
That's what almost everyone is doing, is just sort of staring, like or like being taken away because they're screaming. So like your mother is just like screaming, like a Catelyn Stark Red Wedding scream, and so like people are trying to bring her away back to the castle, and like there's just this awful sort of, no one is doing anything, everyone's just sort of staring. Ryder is like sitting heavily on the roots of one of the weirwood, like breathing heavily, and he like pulls the helmet off, which is like badly dented from a strike, and like there's blood on his head, and but he doesn't seem like he's going to expire here. He like spits blood and onto the ground, and then like looks to the weirwood.
Willard will go to him, and once Wirrick's body is like taken from the scene, he'll implore Master Timos to see to the Lord Rider, much as it pains him.
Yeah.
And he'll leave him with some words, which are, my brother was right in the end. There'll be no betting. You have our hospitality, my lord, and we'll see to you and your wounds until you can ride back to your holdfast.
That's not what we said. The victory is mine, and so things should go as I say.
Have they not?
It's about tradition, Lord Slate.
I agree. My cousin should stand in my brother's place, and the thing should be seen done. And he'll say that as if it's like a heavy burden that he's like being forced to accept of the man, cajoling his latent ego in their post-victory.
The wildling?
The Slate.
Yeah.
He was my lord's second, and you spoke with him, gained a measure of him.
I liked him.
There is none else who could see the tradition done.
All right, it'll do.
He'll have Maester Timos then, who he'd summoned over here to see to the man's wounds. Note that in the ink and book that Wirrick had planned for last eve. And then, yeah, once that's in order, go back to where like Darren is and try and with his eyes gather Alston and Lawrence and others of note to Darren. Like, we need to solidify in this moment of chaos while everyone's still here.
His energy drained out of him from seeing his lord fall. He's just still on his knees, looking down from a distance at Wirrick, and he hasn't really heard or taken in anything that's passed.
Alfie, cousin, please, we must go to Darren.
Alfie raises and does as told in a slight daze.
Yeah, I think Willard like is uncharacteristically tender and like supports him as he goes back with him. Their rivalry, I guess, forgotten at this like stunning moment.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
It's
quite
also-
Clarence's face is like a ghost, and he walks like 1, 2, just like hasn't said a word or like moved anything other than like the minimum necessary like steps that he would take to like follow Wylard. But he would like almost like a zombie following the Lord's magical commands rather than a human being responding. Would show up, still like in some sense feeling the duty bound to like stand near the house.
It's quieter now. Like many of the lords and such have gone with Riswell and like your mother and Arya and the Holts and Vollens, and most people have gone back towards the castle. But yeah, you remain.
Darren, will you take up the mantle and lead our house?
I have to.
Wirrick nods, thinking in his head the same as Wirrick. You must.
You think he's like shell shocked and like unable to, or unwilling maybe, to like function properly. He's still sort of like looking at the bloodstain and sort of slowly shaking his head.
We must see to our people and to our brother's body, and to these matters, and to this blood. Let us not forget his sacrifice or his honor. He kept the old ways. With his memory, let us go to our family and people and mourn.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. He like snapped out of it a little bit, and like seems to look at you for the first time. Yes, there's a lot to do. And he like is nodding to himself, and then like turns to look at the tour in the distance. Yeah, we should go.
Yes, my lord. And beyond our shell-shocked companions, I'll gesture that the other Slate men and soldiers should all come together as one back.
Yeah. So you can head back to the tour, where there's a sort of confusing gathering, I guess, in the hall. Like no one's really sure what happens now. Ryder has been taken to the Maester's chambers to like be dressed, his wounds dressed and stuff. And like he'll come and tell you that he'll live. He has some wounds, but they're not fatal.
He'll thank him and take the book, or like the scroll or vellum that the terms were signed on, and present it to the other, seize the initiative of the shell-shocked hall and present this before the notables, the ladies and lords of high note, including Kayla, and say, by the victor's terms, there shall be a betting, and Alston shall step into my late brother's noble place as a lord of House Slate and willing husband to Lady Arya Holt. It has been decreed, and by the honor of House Slate, who have shed blood in this matter, it will be done. I swear it.
Yeah, Riswell sort of is nodding, and so is Whitehill. I suppose that there'll need to be negotiations with the Holts, Riswell says. But he seems unsure about it. Like this is something he's never experienced before. It's like unprecedented. He doesn't know like can there be an automatic marriage like this? Is this like okay? He doesn't seem so sure.
I will see to the terms with Lord Holt, my lord. We're all in trouble now, but some of these matters cannot wait.
Yes. I'm sorry for your loss.
Our brother honored our house. I thank you for your sorrow. And I guess if the others look too shell-shocked or stricken in grief, Willard will like push, trying to keep ahead of it, of the approaching realization and reality. In frantic denial of it, will push towards Lord Holt to pursue the victor's terms with him.
Yeah. You can find him. He'll be sitting with Arya and his wife, and with the Vollens, at one of the tables, in the, not even at the big table, at one of the tables in the hall.
As Willard makes his way, Alfie stumbles after him. Do you need me with him, or do you need me with you, or?
Yes, Alston, if you can stand it. There are terms which I have said. Did you hear them before? Is it plain from your face?
If you can stand it, I can stand it, he says.
Good.
A little bit of the old feeling coming back.
Yeah, then together we'll go, two slates will go before Lord Holt.
Yeah. He wipes a little bit of Wirrick's blood off your tunic, and and sort of just covers up the worst of it with your cloak. We'll rearrange your belt changes the fold, rearranges your belt and changes some of the folds in your tunic so the blood is not so obvious. And then say, let's go and meet him and get this done.
I'll bow to Lord Holt and tell him Ritter's terms. If he wasn't in hearing of them earlier.
Yeah. He'll sort of like listen, and he's like has his eyes closed, like clearly doing the computations. It's not the same marriage that we agreed to. There'll have to be changes in the terms.
Of course, my lord.
She won't be Lady
But
Slate. Her children won't inherit.
he did spend the evening in my lord's chambers. People will talk, and none can truly know but them what transpired there. And by Ritter's decree, it seems she will be a Slate.
Yes, but not Lady Slate, and nor will her children inherit the lands of House Slate. There's a significant difference there. I think we both know that.
Yes, my lord. What would your terms be?
I'll have to think, Lord Slate. I don't know at this moment. I'll have to think about it. We should discuss it at a time.
Yes.
And he like looks at Arya, who's like just staring like dumbfoundedly across the room. Sort of like dead expression on her face. I hope you'll understand. I don't mean to be short with you. It's not your fault.
Of course not, my lord. I understand. It's just Lord Ryder's blood is up, and he wishes to see the matter done. I would not wish to quarrel with him about it, but if that is your prerogative, he'll bow to the man.
I agree in principle. Beyond that, the details we can figure out between us.
Indeed. But from their friendships, at least, we know the two could love each other as they did when they were children. Do you not love Alston, Lady Arya?
She like
Would you take him as your husband?
turns to look at you and then at Alfie, as if she only just realized that you were there. And then she looks at her dad, and then sort of slowly nods. Yeah, yes.
No man can force a woman to her wedding, but all here have heard her words and must uphold them, says Willard.
Yeah, Holt nods. You're right. And he'll stand, and he'll put his hand on Arya's shoulder. I agree. They're to be married as soon as possible, given a mourning period.
We will burn my brother on the morrow and inter his bones in the crypt. Once we have observed the mourning, we will see the terms done and have peace this winter amongst us all, and alliance.
Yes, let's just hope for peace.
No, let us make it on the morrow.
Yeah, he nods at that. Let's make it.
I think he'll leave Alfie with Arya and go. He'd be looking for like anything, like even to busy himself with stuff that's below his station,
Yeah.
or that he shouldn't micromanage and interfere with, trying to stay ahead of that wave that's coming that he like can hear and feel but won't look at yet, trying to keep that busy.
Yeah, there's kind of a confusion of like what's to happen. I think many of the servants are like unsure, like is it like breakfast time? Is everyone eating here? Like what's the situation? And so like
That's a good one. Yeah, I'd get them to do just that thing. Food and fire and peace.
Yep, so you can organize all that, and I guess that's like plenty of work, and you can like go into the kitchens and start bellowing at servants until they get the job done correctly to try and stave off the realization. Is there anything someone else wants to do?
I think in the chaos after the battle, Jeremy would have just sort of slunk away. But after everyone left, he's returned to stand before the tree and look at that face that's carved onto it. and he's thinking of his dead lord. He can see still where the hot blood had melted some of the frost at the base and then refrozen. And remembering that time that Warwick turned his face from the tree and it was pale and drawn, bleeding from the corners of the mouth. And he looks up at that face and sees the death face of his lord there carved on the tree. And I think some tears well in his eyes, and he walks forward and places his hand on the trunk, hearing that strange silence now that the clamor and the savagery of battle has departed. But it's like a susurrus of whispers that seems to rise, and doesn't know if it's the memory of that duel fought beneath its branches, but it's as if he can hear the distant sound of battle or some war. And then he'll just sort of trail his hand off it and walk back towards the mere to see what will become of House Slate.
Yeah, the face sort of stares impassively as it always does, sort of disapproving, as always, as you make your way back to the Black Mia Tour. Yeah, let's take a quick smoke and break there, and we'll come back and see what happens.
There's none of the lightness or the conversation of before. They just sit together in silence next to each other and taking silently, both grieving, both in shock, but taking some, in the distance, there's some small measure of comfort in the company of each other, but there's very little said. Occasionally they pour a drink and have it and take a sip, but they don't really drink. The servant at some stage brings in some food, but they take a nibble but don't really eat. And then after a while of sitting together in a silence, a sort of, he just has an arm around her, and they take some comfort in each other's presence. And then Alfie says, "There's something I need to do," and he gets up and kisses her and goes out and goes over to Lord Ryder's room and knocks on the door.
One of his men will answer it. Very, very tall man. You would have seen him. You might have even heard of him. Hammerhand. He's like got a big sword and he's known for using it. He'll like look at you. He's probably as tall as you, which is pretty tall. And sort of like raises an eyebrow. Yes.
How is your lord? Is he fit enough for me to have a word with him, or shall I come back some other time?
He's all right. I'll ask. And he like basically pops his head around the corner and like speaks quietly, and then comes back and nods.
I come in and look round and pull up a little stool or something, or sit down on the floor beside his bed, if he's resting in this bed, and say, I don't know how many bedding ceremonies you've been to, Lord. I've been to a few, and sometimes, like the one of Lord Willard's wife, sometimes I've seen the people in the house defend their lady against others, and little brawls have broken out in the mob, and sometimes it's turned nasty and blood has been spilt. But and when blood is spilt, the guest rights are broken. And when I was up in the north, I remember once seeing the rats that roam out from Night Fort, as big as sniffer dogs with thick white fur and pink eyes. You know as well as I do how they came into being. Samandal King, some say Tyrell II, others say Oswald the Eagle was visiting the Lord Commander of the Crows. The king snubbed one of the stewards in the night watch. But this steward was a mean man and got his revenge by murdering the king's son and serving up a bacon and prince pie. But the gods were angry, not for the revenge, which is right, or cannibalism, but for breaking the sacred laws of hospitality. We've had a lot of. This has been an unusual bedding ceremony, and it has. It's arranged. I am now to marry Arya, and after losing her husband today, she must go through that tomorrow, and I don't know. I would have her defended, and
It can
seem
wait.
like the best. Say that again.
It can wait. We don't have to put her through that. It just has to happen. Eventually. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. She's a child, for God's sake. We can wait. But it has to happen.
I'm not questioning that. Good.
If it's alright with you, I'll leave one of my men here, and he can witness it when it happens.
Fine. Which one of your men are you leaving? Well, you decide. I just wanted to speak to you.
I'm glad you did.
Yes. And I'll also let you know that though it might have offended the gods, but I was when Lord Wyrick said there would be no bedding ceremony, a surge of excitement came through me, and I thought it was a good decision, and I would have fought to the death, and I was prepared to fight for the death to defend his decision, and I would have happily done so, but it wasn't to be. Well, I've had my say. I'll leave you, Lord.
I don't think any less of him for following it through. He did what he thought was right. The gods didn't think so, else I'd be dead. But he stood by his word. I can see that several of you were willing to as well, and that speaks well of him. I hope there's no bad blood now with me and you.
I mourn my cousin, but it was rightfully done.
All right.
I cannot feel any liking for you at the moment, but I respect how you've dealt with this. You've done what you felt right, and I wish he'd gutted you, and I turned round and leave.
Yeah, I think you see the big man sort of like stiffen at that, but like Ryder sort of shakes his head, and you can go out into the hall again.
Other arrangements.
And you did not go to Darren in this? He is a warrior's model.
Your plans are the most well laid. I figured you'd have the best reply. If my sword is to be sworn to him, I would gladly do so if you think it would be best.
You honor me to come to me in this way, Sir Lawrence. You who are my brother's keeper, to stay you honor me in my house. I would gladly accept if you would swear your sword to our service. Continued. You are leal, steadfast, loyal to the Slate, a warrior proven amongst our best, unrivaled thus far in deadly battle, where so many others have been slain. And I would not ever bid you to compromise the honor you so clearly see. Never.
The North has taken a lot, yet there's something to it, I think, that I've seen. To stand here and watch everything wilt around you in the cold, and to stand anyways. There's a different honor than the one that I'm used to, but it is an honor of its own. After the period of mourning is done, if you'll allow it, I'll swear to you into the house to stay here, continue to fight.
We will be glad of it. I am glad of it. Of course, our house is at your service.
And my sword is at yours.
Willard will go to speak, but the words will catch and he'll go quiet again and just knot his fingers together.
A soldier's mourning, it's a contradiction in a way. There's only one way, and that is to wade into the next blood and to continue on, no matter what we lose. If every man that we lost sent us down a spiral of grief, there would be no soldiers in the land. And like say that the words like almost as if he's trying to convince himself, not say them to you, just to like try to find any semblance of purpose like in this moment. If there's
Your
work
words
to
are
be done,
wise.
give it to me and I'll see it.
I would have you take half a dozen of our best riders and 30 men north beyond the Vollen lands to the border of the branch or bowls it was, and Whitehills. There is talk of bandits there who waylaid Lady Kayla's van. They were sent off but not scoured out. I would have them captured and know of their purpose. Pick the men you deem best. Now, Alston has orders to supply you with what you may need for the march.
As you say, my lord. I'll see to it. And like pause, like looking for like anything else to say. Like he feels like he should have something more to say, but instead, he'll like suppress it down, like mask the impending horror with just whatever pragmatism he can soak it in, and turn away to leave.
Where are you going, Lawrence?
You said to gather men to leave.
After the period of mourning is done. come sit by the fire with us. Let us share a draught. I was telling Tira of Wirrick's first fall of horse. I'm sure he hasn't told you.
Yeah, Lawrence will give that slight chuckle of memory that you can only do in like grief and
Grief.
fondness at the same time. Yeah, and walk over and sit.
Yeah, and I'll tell him that tale by the fire, and Tira both.
Over the next day or so, like the other lords will start to make their leave. Riswell will basically inform that he saw everything and that he basically presided over it, and so you don't need to fear any reprisals from Lord Riswell as far as he sees it. And yeah, sort of slowly, bit by bit, people will be leaving. Your uncle will stay. Lord Fisher will stay for a time and spend some time here to console his sister, who is just beyond consolation at this stage. And yeah, snow would fall, and a grim mood, I guess, falls over Blackmere for the foreseeable future. And we'll find out what happens next time. So thank you for watching if you did, and we'll see you then.